introducing myself first. My name is Alessandra Birding. I am the Associate Director of Alumni Relations Programs and Services here at Trinity. We also have Stephanie Melvin on the line as well, who's the Director of Alumni Relations over at Trinity. A couple of housekeeping items, and then I'll go ahead and introduce our panel. And we do have some of our amazing Alumni Association board members along with us on the call today. So just a few housekeeping things. Since we do have panelists speaking, if you are not one of those panelists or asking a question, please keep yourself on mute to just kind of reduce some background noise. You do have the ability to unmute yourself today. So when we get to the question and answer portion, we'll ask you to unmute yourself and you can ask the question, since we want it to be, kind of interactive. But when we're asking the panel questions, if you could just keep yourself on mute, that would be great. Any questions, go ahead and just put them in the chat for us. And we'll answer those as well. And then I wanted to, if you haven't yet, if you can go ahead and put your name and your class here in the chat box so we can see who else is on the call, that would be fantastic. On this call, we do, like I said, have some board members. So I wanted to introduce first Joan Gordon-Wax. She is the board president of the Trinity Washington Alumni Association. So I just wanted to kind of give her a minute and introduce herself. So you guys can kind of put faces to name to our Alumni Association as well.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thanks for doing this. I was really interested in the topic, having been an entrepreneur myself. I'm from the class of '66, which is like a long time ago. And after graduating from Trinity, 17 years later, I went to law school, which probably surprised everyone at Trinity, I must say. I wasn't the best student there. I went to school in New York City to Cardozo Law School and graduated in '85, took the Jersey bar, passed it, and started my career by clerking for a Superior Court judge. After that, I worked in a firm, mid-sized firm, for about 8 years, and then I took off on my own. And I had a two-person firm. We specialized in family law, or unfamily law, as I sometimes called it. And I did that for about 33 years. And at age 70, I decided I had enough of that and left that practice and kept a part-time job I had doing other kinds of legal work, which was a lot more interesting and fun, but on a part-time basis. And I retired from that on March 1. So I am now no longer practicing law, I have to say, sadly. So I like to tell people I'm on the other side of the mountain. But at age 76, I think I earned the right to be able to say goodbye to that career. And I found other things to do to keep me busy. So I joined the board in about 12 years ago. I think I've first served almost every position there is. Don't be secretary, that's not fun. But so far, this has been an odd presidency. I've had no meetings on campus. All meetings have been by Zoom. We have a great board. I know most of them for years now. And I have to say, we've become very good friends. And I miss everybody terribly. And I especially today want to mention the fact that Seton Kaneem, Sister Seton, was on our board. And she passed away last night, very sadly. She was a wonderful person. She was in the class 1 year before me, and I knew her in school, and she was also very helpful to me when my daughter was a student at Trinity. So just wanted to acknowledge her wonderfulness. All right.
Thank you so much, Joan.
You're welcome.
And then we also have Jerry on the call as well. Jerry, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you're in the middle of work as well.
I'm tired.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go as long as Joan, but hello, everybody. My name's Jerry Pyong. I'm the class of 99, same class as Corinne. Shout out to my classmate. But I'm currently on the board as the nominating chair, which means that I handle nominations. So we are looking for new board members, and if you're interested, please let the alumni office know and we'll get to you. But as Joan said, we are have not been able to meet in person, which is usually the best part of the group, is meeting in person and getting updates on campus and about our alma mater. But we're doing the best we can. And we always look for opportunities to support alums, engage in activities as best we can. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. All right. So I just kind of wanted to give them a small platform. And like Jerry said, if you are interested and know someone who's interested, please let us know. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so we can actually all see each other. Awesome. So I wanted to start by introducing our three panelists, which is the reason that everyone is here to hear their fantastic stories. So I'm going to do a brief introduction of each of them, and then I'm going to ask each of them to kind of give us an overview of them and their business and how they ended up at Trinity. And then I have some questions, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. So we'll start with Jasmine. Jasmine Jones, class of 13, is the co-founder and CEO of Cherry Blossom Intimates, an intimates boutique that offers breast cancer survivors across the nation completely customizable, fully insurance billable breast prosthetics. So awesome. Thank you for being here, Jasmine. Next, we have Corinne Cannon, class of 99 and 03. Corinne is the founder and CEO of the Greater DC Diaper Bank. She was selected as Washingtonian of the Year by Washingtonian Magazine in 2020. Greater DC Diaper Bank works to strengthen families by providing a reliable supply of free baby and hygiene essentials to families in need living in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Greater DC Diaper Bank provides an average of 500,000 diapers a month to families across the region and services to 25,000 plus families a year. So thank you so much, Corinne. And lastly, we have Courtney O'Neill, class of 13. Courtney is the founder of Courted, an image consulting firm. Courted provides image consulting through traditional communication support, creative direction, and personal styling services. So three very different businesses from three awesome Trinity women. So I'll go ahead and start with Jasmine first, if you just kind of want to give us some of your background and how you ended up at Trinity.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Jones. I'm the CEO of Cherry Blossom Intimates. We have a brick and mortar store right outside of Washington, D.C. in Lanham, Maryland. And we help breast cancer survivors to feel confident, complete, and whole and beautiful through our products and services. I ended up at Trinity because they very graciously accepted all of my credits from my very odd college career. I was previously at a private college in New York, and the school was just very expensive. So I transferred then to a private college in the South, and that ended up going to take me an extended amount of time to graduate, and they let me know. So I came to Trinity and I said, hey, I really need to graduate on time and on budget. And the admissions office was very helpful in making sure that was able to come to light. And my background previously has just always been in entrepreneurship. And I actually was on the entrepreneurship track when I was at Trinity. And then I started a business not long thereafter. So I'm sure we'll discuss it in much more detail in the questions to come.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Yeah.
And then Corinne, we'll head over to you.
Hello, everyone. It is great to see you. When we first started talking about this, I thought I am so excited because Jasmine and Cherry Blossom Intimates have done some support of the diaper bank, and I adore this idea. I think it's long overdue. So excited to be talking with you. And Courtney, I need to hang out with you. We need to spend some time together. You need to change my whole image. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you. I started this when I had my first child. So I had my first son in 2009. And for those of you who have little people in your life, you know that little people are wonderful and fantastic, and also sometimes the worst thing that could ever happen to you. My little guy was a very difficult infant. And it really got me thinking about the supports and resources that we provide and really don't provide for families, particularly economically vulnerable families. So we, after doing a whole bunch of research, we got started, and I credit a lot of the beginning of the diaper bank with a class I took with a woman named Dr. Kathleen McGinnis. And she retired a little while ago, but she did a course on economically vulnerable kids. And it really got me thinking about some of the policy structures that were creating a horrific reality for families and what we could do about that. why I came to Trinity. My mom taught there for about 35 years. And so I grew up in the halls of Trinity and I was very comfortable there and I really loved it. And I had plans to go someplace else and I went there and it wasn't me. It wasn't a good fit for me. So I ended up coming to Trinity and couldn't have been happier. I stayed there for my undergraduate degree and then I got a master's there as well. I am so sorry to hear about Sister Seaton. That is a very big loss. But I think that she would be happy that there were women gathering today to talk about how we change the world for good.
Yes, absolutely agree. Thank you so much. And then lastly, we'll go to Courtney.
Hi, everybody. My name is Courtney O'Neill. I'm class of 2013. I received my master's degree in communications from Trinity. And my story with Trinity is kind of similar to Jasmine's, where I was looking for an opportunity to go to graduate school. I was under pressure from my parents, you need your master's degree, you need your master's degree. At the time, it's not that I didn't value second level of education outside of my bachelor's, which I attended at HBCU. But I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in. And I found that the requirements for graduate school applications were also a challenge, meaning, GRE scores and paperwork, timing and all of that. So when I went to meet with Trinity Washington University, I found it very refreshing. I met with, at the time, Dean Wood, and just talked about where I was in my career, but then also maybe where I thought I wanted to go on a trajectory. And looking at the coursework, it aligned with me overall. And again, the process was easy. So that's how I became part of the Trinity Alumni. So I'm very grateful for that degree and it's served me well ever since.
Awesome, thank you. So I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask our three panelists. Any of you can jump in at any point. You can all answer it. You can say next question. So kind of just really want a free flow of conversation, and then we'll leave some time at the end for any questions that anyone has. So my first question is, what are some important steps that you took for a startup to act on that idea? So what are the first kind of steps? You came up with the idea, and then what were your very first steps, and how did you kind of, I think a lot of people say, I want to do XYZ, but I have no idea where do I start?
So I will jump in, and I think it links actually a lot to what I learned at Trinity. I'm a liberal arts gal, to the end here. And so I did an incredible amount of research. So I was very intent on not starting something that did not need to be started. And I also didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So I spent about 6 months researching what the needs were and what already existed. And I think that that's actually key to anything you're going to do, a nonprofit, a business, whatever you're going to step, make sure you know the landscape before you leap. I'm also very pro at some point just leaping, right? Just jumping, but you need to do your research, you need to do your homework before you do that.
One of my first steps was actually in the development of a business plan. And I learned that when I was in Trinity, that was one of my final projects as a senior, was to create a business plan. But I mapped out everything that I wanted the business to have, and every option and service and product I wanted to provide. And then I started researching costs, and that was really important. I ended up condensing it down to about 40 pages. I ran copies at the FedEx, I had it bound, and then I took it to a bank to get financing. So our first steps was to write all that we could ever imagine and dream, write it down on a piece of paper, and get it ready for presentation.
Okay, and then I will jump in here. So I think I'm probably going to have different answers than all these these other two ladies, because I am not a brick and mortar business. And in fact, my business started out as just being a stylist, a fashion stylist. So it was a lot more on the creative avenue of thinking and thought processing. So literally my idea started as a sketch. I started with a sketch of my logo. And I remember I was working for a consulting agency at the time, and I saw an RFP for image consultants to help re-engage Army veterans back into society, basically. And I remember my boss at the time telling me, you could do that too, because she just saw, you know, my interest in personal style. My profession by day is communications. I'm a communications professional by trade. And so I just started thinking like, I have a little bit more of a connection, I guess, to the fashion industry and communications, and then also politics, which is also my background. I remember watching First Lady Michelle Obama on the first presidential campaign and her impact on the fashion industry. So whatever she would wear, for instance, those stocks would go up approximately 400% overnight just because she wore something. So looking at influence and trying to connect those dots between, and at that time, an influencer on that scale, business, and then something which is just general interest that we all have, what we wear. So thinking about those things in that context and then trying to make it all make sense as a business. So that's how I got started.
Thank you. Another question we have is, if you had a chance to start your entrepreneurship career over again from the beginning, is there something that you would do differently?
I always tell people to ask for more money than they think they're going to need if they're raising funding, because everything costs so much more than you expect. So that would be my number one piece of advice. Ask for more money or raise more money prior to launch. We bootstrapped our company up until January of 2020, and then we raised a seed round of $1.25 million in October of 2020 after completing the Techstars Accelerator. But before then, when we were just bootstrapping, it was just really expensive, really hard. So I would definitely say, if you're going for funding or financing of any sort, just plan that it will cost you more than you expect.
Thanks, Corinne.
Yeah, I would say lean into the mistakes, lean into them, like really, really lean into them. In the beginning, I would mess something up royally, and I'd be so embarrassed and sad that I'd done that, that I'd forget the lesson. I wouldn't learn the lesson from it. So, you know, when you're starting something brand new, you're going to screw up, right? And if you're going to screw up big, right? And then learn from it and kind of take that. So I think I was a lot more hesitant early on than I am now. And I think some of that has to do with you're starting something and you're a little bit scared. But I say learn from it and embrace them. When you've messed up something, you go to the person you messed up with and you said, I messed up, help me make it better. And I did that a lot with funders, you know, and I think it's important to be honest with people about where mistakes are.
I think what I would do differently is in terms of leaning into all of my strengths. So I started out more with an interest, but I forgot about what I actually am really good at, which is communications. And I didn't know how to connect the dots again between essentially what I get paid for by day and how I make other people money, and how to make my interests and my hard skill sets align. So I think a challenge that some entrepreneurs like myself, or even creatives more so, have, especially looking at generations and mentors, is people don't know how to tell you what they don't know. So aligning yourself with people that do what you want to do, and then also developing more relationships with people who have done it before you, if you will. So other business owners and those types of like-minded individuals. I think that would be something I would have done a lot sooner than listening to people that don't get it, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. Another question that we have is, what key activities would you recommend that entrepreneurs invest a bulk of their time in?
In this day and age, marketing is so important. That's something I wish I had a better grasp on when we first began. Understanding the voice and tone of my customer and how she likes to be spoken to. Once I tapped into that, we made a lot more money. And I would also say, for a tech founder, understanding coding and user experience at this point is paramount, and you almost can't live without it. And if there were anything I wish that I would have learned before starting, it's how to code and how to create apps, because I think that's definitely the wave of the future. And that's one thing I wish I knew.
Yeah, I would add, I think you need to be comfortable talking to anybody, like literally anybody at all. If you gave me 3 people, I could give you my spiel. So from that marketing perspective, figuring out what your pitch is, and then just saying it all the damn time, right? Getting out there as much as you possibly can. In the beginning of this, I spoke to anybody who would talk to me. You want me to get up at 8 a.m. and come talk to your group? I will be there. You want me to talk at 10 p.m.? I will be there. And it is both harder and easier in a Zoom world, I think, because you can get people together, but you can't have that connection that I think matters a whole lot. But I think getting out there and spending time talking to strangers about what you're doing is a huge piece of launching anything.
So outside of everything that the other ladies said, I agree with public speaking is a very strong platform to use. It's free usually, and sometimes you even get paid to do it yourself. And then also using the things that are out there in media. That is one of the ways that I've been able to promote my business. And again, just thinking about the things that you're good at or that you have skills in or knowledge of, use those things to your advantage to help build out your brand or your business platform.
And I know Jasmine touched on this a little bit earlier, but if you guys would mind going into how you raised capital for your company is.
I can expound on it firstly. So we bootstrapped. We took out a small business loan with the SBA and a local bank, which I highly recommend if you're looking for funding. And then that got us to build out of our facility. We have 2,000 square foot boutique, which is really beautiful. And I hope you guys all come visit. It's like the girliest lingerie store you could ever imagine, but it's also a fully accredited medical facility. So you're staying in a doctor's office and in a lingerie boutique. But beyond that, I presented at a pitch competition, a global pitch competition called SoGal. And I flew out to Silicon Valley and I won $100,000 there. And then I interviewed for Techstars and I got into Techstars, which is one of the largest tech accelerators in the world. And we closed 1.25 million in October from that. And then outside of that, the boutique does revenue on a daily basis and is profitable at this point.
I will step back on this one because we're nonprofits, a little bit of a different funding structure. But what I will say is, Jasmine, I heard in what you just said, I heard what my mantra is: ask, 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 ask. So you find the people who have the money and you go after them. I always use the kind of mantra: if someone said no to me, I said, okay, it's okay. You said no to me. Who else should I ask? Because you know somebody who I'm a good fit for. And I think that works in the nonprofit world, but it also works in the corporate world as well. If anything, what I've realized is the world is tinier than you thought. So everybody knows everybody else. So you got to be willing to ask for what you want.
I agree. I would say that for me, I will use stock investment money, some savings, if you will, from my day job, and then also being accepted into incubator programs. So those are other avenues or revenue streams that you could use.
Thank you. All very important. And I think it's nice that we have kind of 3 different, we have a for-profit, a nonprofit, kind of get all those backgrounds as well. How did you handle, I guess, either internally or within the family or within, building your companies? How did you handle adversity and doubt when building your business?
I'll dive in here because people told me this was a dumb idea and they weren't even kind about it. I mean, they really weren't. Courtney and Jasmine, you've got really good ideas, and I think it's something that people understand. People didn't understand what a diaper bank was. They didn't understand what we were trying to do. And I got a whole lot of, oh, she wants to help babies. Isn't that cute? Do you know, I mean, people did not understand the lived reality of women's lives, because we primarily serve women, and they didn't understand the lived reality of families who are parenting in poverty. So I got a lot of people who said to me over and over again, this is a bad idea. You know, I always say that the diaper bank would not exist without my husband, because for the first 5 years, I was a sole employee. And for the first 3 years, I did this pro bono while working full time. And there were a lot of nights when I said to my husband, we're done. You know, we have young children and I can't do this anymore and I'm done. And he was always the one who said, you got this. And he was always the one who said, you know what, let's just give it another month. Let's just give it another 2 months and let's see what happens. You have to believe like an idiot that you've got a good idea. I mean, you've got to believe against all odds that what you're doing is the right thing to be doing, and you got to keep on going. And when people say no, you have to simply ignore them and kind of tune them out. And I think that is, it can make you feel crazy some days, right? It can make you feel like you're the only one, you know, out there who gets it. But I think it's really important to have a vision for what you want to do, and then you just target onto that vision and you go forward.
Yeah, I had a lot of people who, like Corinne said, believe that this was a really great idea. But for me, that doesn't motivate me. What motivates me is hearing someone say that it's not good. So I would internalize the one person who would say it wasn't going to work. And I actually had one person tell me our main demographic is Black women. And they said, that's not going to work. Black women don't care about their health. They're not going to shop with you. This was verbatim. And I remember just thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. And normally in my life, I've had a lot of experiences where I've done a lot of winning. I was Miss Black DC USA. I was Miss DC USA in 2016. So I had a lot of winning, but anytime that someone would tell me it's something I can't do, that was enough steam to keep me working all hours of the night, get me up bright and early the next day. So that doubt really helped. But I would agree, like you have to almost trick your mind into believing in such a positive way that you're vibrating on almost another frequency where it doesn't matter whatever happens, the obstacles won't stop you. You have to know that you'll overcome them. And one of my friends doesn't call them obstacles, he calls them just a roadblock, right? And roadblocks can be moved. Obstacles sound like something that is big and huge and you gotta like climb over it, but a roadblock you can just kind of like push aside, you know? So once I started training my mind to be positive in that way and look at every hardship as an opportunity, then I started to win even more. And I would count my no's. I would count people who would say, no, it's not going to work. And I would try to get to like 10 no's because I knew I had a batting average of 1 in 6. So if I lost something 6 times, then, you know, or if I tried 6 times, I would win at least once. So I said, okay, I'll peg myself to try 10 times. So that's enough buffer in case something doesn't work out. But I would always just try. And I think the only people that are successful are people who just kept trying. We could have all stopped at something being challenging or hard or difficult or a door closed, but I think we all just kept persevering, even when it got really, really tough. I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. I would say there's 3 different things I would say. So faith is one of those things. And I'm not saying just like in a religious context, I'm just saying, you know, believing in yourselves, which the other 2 ladies mentioned, believing in your idea, your concept. If you listen to people, you know, some of the things we heard being on a higher level, people that are motivational speakers or other entrepreneurs, they talk about trusting that intuition, that gut that you have, like this idea came to you for a reason. So you have vision. So trusting that vision and going so far that you can't turn back. So investing so far in it, not just financially, but like the work that you're putting in. So putting in those hours, putting in that time, looking back at your accomplishments, which I think a lot of times is hard to do, being able to look at the wins and be like, wow, I actually did this. I've had to work on that as part of my journey, my personal story. But I think the other thing that is important is drowning out the noise, meaning people a lot of times, and I see this with women, I'm sure it happens with men too, but I'm not a man. They try to compare you to other people. So you're doing this just like somebody else. No, I'm not competing against anybody else. I'm just competing against myself. And so one of the things I always say is I only measure myself against the best. So if somebody else is the best public speaker or the best at making baskets, that's who I'm trying to be like. And that's who I'm studying in terms of that field or in that industry. Anybody else that's on the peer level, that's great, but I'm not paying attention to them. So cheers to them and what they're doing, but they are on a different path than you. So you have to ignore all of that comparison context or idea in order for you to stay focused on your journey and what you're doing.
When it comes to mentorship, did you guys have mentors that you could look up to? Was that a benefit when it came to putting your business together? Would you recommend a mentor for someone who was looking to become an entrepreneur?
Yes, you're going to need one. And people always ask me, oh, where do you find one? And I would definitely say going to events or networking events or social events or conferences in your industry. That's a great place to start. But I'd also say, you know, just going up to a person and saying, can you be my mentor is not the best approach. And if you're looking for someone outside of your typical scope, there's no harm in just listening to their podcast, reading their book, watching their YouTube videos, studying what they do on their website so that you can learn the ropes. It doesn't have to be a hand-holding Q&A session every month. You know, it can be a lot less formal than that, and you can still be successful.
Ditto, 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 ditto. Yes. I think when people hear mentor, they have this idea in their head that that's not the reality. Sometimes I've been mentored in a very formal way, and other times I've been mentored over coffee as a throwaway conversation, right? You got to kind of look for the people who can guide you. I also, in the beginning of this, did a whole lot of asking for people's advice. Whether I was going to use it or not didn't matter in some ways. I wanted to sit down with them. I wanted to share my idea. I wanted their thoughts on it, and I wanted their ideas on other things. And people adore being asked for their advice. So I did a lot of cold calling. I did it with foundations, and I did it with other nonprofits of just saying, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And can we talk about this for a little bit? People are generous with their time in that way. So I think look for those formal ones, but look for the informal ones as well.
Yes, I have mentors in across, you know, industries, if you will, and people that have maybe started out in the same space as me. Like I mentioned, I started out as a fashion stylist solely, and I've attended like their forums and all those different things and asked, you know, stood up and raised my hand and asked the question. But to Corinne's point about building those relationships with people, you know, you never know where a conversation goes or that relationship will take you. A lot of those people have become clients or have introduced me to somebody who has become a client. And I've been surprised at how life has gone full circle in a very short period of time. So another maybe generic answer is also just looking at SBA. SCORE has a mentorship program for entrepreneurs. It didn't exactly work for me, but it works for a lot of people.
Sorry, I couldn't get myself unmuted there. Is there some one thing that that you would say attributes to your success as an entrepreneur? Is there a way that you measure yourself as a successful entrepreneur? Obviously with Jasmine, your business is more revenue generating, and same with Courtney. But as an entrepreneurship, I guess, what kind of makes you feel like you're a successful entrepreneur?
I'll start. I think I'm a successful entrepreneur when I have freedom of time and I have the opportunity to do what I want with my day. That means that my team is doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and that means I can take a break. So for me as a successful entrepreneur, that's how I sort of would gauge it outside of revenue. and outside of impact, because for us, the goal is to reach 1 million breast cancer survivors by 2025. So outside of those two goals, if I can just have a day like right now where the boutique is open, our team is working, but I get to chat with you all and puppy is over here in the corner, I think that's a perfect day, and that's success to me.
I love that definition. I love it. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think a lot about the organization's longevity. To kind of, Jasmine, to kind of hook on to kind of what you were saying, I think a lot about what happens when I'm not leading it. And I think for every nonprofit leader in particular, one of the things you have to think about is how do you build an organization that is strong and does not need you. And I think that hooks into that as well. Like, we should be running on policy, and there should be a process for things. And it's hard when you begin something to put those things in place, especially when you're the sole person or there's two people who are working so very hard. It's hard to do that. So I think, ensuring that this is here longer term for the community is something that I use as a measure of success. And we're really close to that.
So success for me is always like a moving target. So I'm always it's a driver for me. So I'm happy with the fact that my company has grown from B to C to now B to B. But I'm not content with where I'm at right now, or where we're at right now. I wanted to keep going. I am happier in terms of this level of success with the fact that alignment has taken place, as I mentioned, between from starting at a point maybe of interest and transforming that as well as into skill and execution. So those things, again, speaking more from a creative standpoint, I know that creatives have a challenge sometimes with being able to execute, and then also making that execution profitable, being able to align those things so that it becomes a real business and not just a starving artist concept. So that's been something that has been exciting for me.
Thank you. All right, we have one more question, and then we're going to open it up to any of the participants. So our last question is, what is one thing that you wish someone told you about starting a business? And what's one thing that you will tell someone who is going to start their own business or comes to you and says, I want to be an entrepreneur? What's one piece of advice you would offer them?
I will say the piece of advice that I would give somebody is the same piece of advice that I got, which is you will never be ready, just do it. And I think that after having done the research and thought and planned and there is this hesitancy to starting it because you want it to be right and you want it to hit right out of the park, and it's not going to. Right. So, I think that piece of advice was so beautiful. And it was in some colorful language that I was told this, but it was essentially, you're not going to do it right. You're not. So just leap out there and then deal with what comes next, because that leaping, that not leaping can hinder you and become this thing which is huge and just blocks you. So take the leap.
One thing that I read somewhere was that, if you're going to do this, be prepared to be obsessed with it. And I understood that, I thought, in the beginning, but it does take a level of mild obsession because it's your entire life. I think I see my mom's on her phone is joining the Zoom, but I remember bringing my laptop to a Father's Day baseball game because I had to get something out. And I just remember it was so important. And, the company is so important sometimes at the startup stage that you have to do what you have to do. So I'd say, be prepared to be obsessed. But another piece of advice that I would share is better done than perfect. So don't allow perfection to get in the way of you getting something out or off your desk. Just let it get done. And if they need something else, they'll let you know. Or if it could be upgraded, just call this the beta version. and this is volume 1 and just get it out there into the world, because if not, you're going to be obsessing over every little detail, and it's, it's going to drive you crazy. So better done than perfect, and prepare to be obsessed.
I think one of the things that I wish somebody had shared with me in the beginning, or made it maybe a little bit more plain, is that your business is not for your friends or your family. It's for everybody else out in the world. So because your business is your baby, and it's like your baby, and you want everybody to love your baby just as much as you do, that's not necessarily going to happen. And the emotional connection that you have with your business is not going to resonate with your peers or your family members per se. Again, like, some people are not necessarily going to get it or even see your vision for it. So understanding that up front, and kind of, again, putting those like horse race blockers on and just running your race as you see fit, was something I wish I had been more aware of going into this. I think that another thing that helped, that I took from my day job and applied it to entrepreneurship: no is one answer, it's not the only answer. So you're going to hear no so many times that it's numbing to you. You're like, okay, and like, what else? Who's next? Like, you just move it out of the way and just keep going, because it's just looking for that yes. It, again, like Jasmine said, Corinne said, everybody said the same thing. It's not about how many times you get knocked down, it's about how many times you get back up. So you just have to keep going through all of the obstacles or challenges that you may face.
Thank you all. That's all fantastic advice. So we will go ahead and open it up to questions. So if anyone has a question, just go ahead and raise your hand, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Ask any of the 3 wonderful alums if you have any other questions.
Actually, I do have a question.
Or Stephanie.
Since all of you pretty much are successful in doing your thing in the marketplace and everything, as we all know, the pandemic changed a lot of things. Okay, forced people to reevaluate, forced people to deal with realities they've never had to do before. You're out there, you're in the midst of it. Do you see women's businesses growing, exploding, or do you see that kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say slowing down or going out of business, but what do you see out there amongst your peers now and going forward? How do you see this coming about, especially when we're looking at people who lost jobs in a brick and mortar store, lost jobs in a 9-to-5 office? You know, what do you see out there now? What do you see is happening going forward?
I'll start. I think that there's never been a better time to be a business owner, especially if you're a woman, and even more so if you're a Black woman. I think that the world is sort of reawakening to having a perspective where a lot of people are voting with their dollars, and they're investing in companies that they believe in. And I think that they are quick to find someone who's a small, locally owned business before going out to the big boys. And I think that now there are many marketplaces designed online to help to support women-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses and Latina-owned businesses and Asian-owned businesses better than any other time previously. And I also see that there are a lot of grant opportunities for women-owned businesses and underrepresented founders as well. So I think if there ever was a time to start, now is a great time to start. And for us, post-pandemic, we've noticed the uptick in sales because I think people are just ready to get out of the house. Like, they're ready to feel beautiful again. They're ready to get back to normal. So we've noticed an uptick in sales. And then beyond that, we pivoted our business during COVID to have more of a tech aspect where we can help women virtually. So we're now growing so that we can help women across the globe to be fit on a Zoom call style telehealth virtual session, as opposed to having them physically have to walk into a brick and mortar. So there's never been a better time than now. I would say start right now.
I can attest to the fact that with branding and communication strategy, again, because the fact that companies, we saw with last summer to present, there's a call, a battle cry for not only a change in communication from internally, but also externally. So you saw the release of a lot of public statements, but then it's like, now what do we do with that? So there's a call to action for diversity and inclusion and equity, so that has increased with an ask for consultants and also a hiring push as well. But you see a lot of RFPs and things going out for help with that communication strategy. To Joss's point about people wanting to feel good about themselves, people are randomly like, I want to do a photo shoot and all these different things of that nature. Or on a B2B standpoint, companies are trying to figure out, because it is too costly to call Kim Kardashian or someone of that nature to represent their brand, how do they go to a digital influencer to support them as a brand ambassador on a multitude of platforms to try to figure out how to showcase their brand in a meaningful and impactful way, or in an authentic way? Because also what has been shown is that people trust people that they know more than someone that they don't know. So again, with entrepreneurship, it is an opportunity to create your own content, and also to figure out where the loopholes exist between the consumer and the brand or the business.
Fantastic, thank
See
you.
a different realm. So I think those are really insightful.
It looks like we have a hand up from Courtney. Go ahead, Courtney, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for their time today. And Alessandra, thank you for facilitating. This has been a great format. I have a couple questions. First one is probably a direct question for Courtney about incubator programs and what that term means. So that's my first question. This would be a question out to everybody. Finding grants, what does that look like? Where do you start? That's my second. Did I say two or three? Because there's a third. And this might be for Kareen, which is really understanding what a nonprofit business model, especially when you're in the planning stages, would look like compared to a typical private business. I don't know what the terminology would be.
Okay, I'll start with, so the incubator program that I participated in is called DC Fashion Foundation, and it was in partnership with Macy's. And I discovered that incubator through a relationship that I had from Capitol Hill when I used to work on Capitol Hill. Ironically, there's a textile and fashion commission or something of that nature. The lady who created that committee will be mad at me right now for not getting the name right, but she has a committee actually on Capitol Hill focused on like textiles and fashion from a policy perspective. And she also developed this incubator program, which is in partnership with Macy's. And so that was the incubator that I participated in for, I think, about a year or so. And it helped me, again, develop relationships, get my business out there more on a higher platform, and work with a big company, global company like Macy's. So, which I still work with till this day. So that's an example of an incubator. Some of them have more financial connections to them. You just have to do your research. There's one for every industry. I mean, I've seen them in food, everything. Grants, I see them a lot tied to corporations. I see them tied to banking as well, usually, and also nonprofits. So pay attention to those. Like National Urban League has a Black-owned business endeavor going on that's actually connected back to Beyonce. So there, I mean, this is like something out there for everybody. It's almost like getting a scholarship for someone applying to college. There's money out there for everybody. We just have to do our research to kind of find it.
And I'll jump in on the nonprofit business plan and kind of the grants question. A business plan for a nonprofit actually does not look fundamentally different from a business plan for a business. There are a couple different things on the funding part around foundation funding and government funding, but the actual business plan, the marketing, how you're going to raise your initial capital, all of those things look exactly the same. And then in terms of grants, a lot of it depends on what industry you're in and what sector you want to do. I'm happy to kind of talk offline about it because it can get pretty detailed. But generally speaking, most I would start at the Foundation Center and just do some research there. But there is funding for everything you might want to do.
Yeah, I've just dropped a few resources in the chat for grants that and programs that I've worked with previously, especially I Fund Women. They've been great. And then I dropped also a list of grants for women. And I'm going to drop in, just in case anyone's interested, there was a listserv created after all of these companies said, we're going to do X, Y, and Z million things for Black founders. Well, someone put together an Excel spreadsheet to hold them all accountable. So I'll drop that spreadsheet in the chat as well. And it's every corporation's commitment all in one place.
Fantastic. Thank you all for that information. We do have one question in the chat from Miss Lolita. And I saw that, Jasmine, you did respond to her chat, but how do you stop the fear of failure? How do you stop the fear of failure? How do you stop the fear of failure and stay motivated when things get tough during launching your business?
You know, I think Jasmine hit on a little bit, you know, a lot of it here. You know, you give yourself some benchmarks, and you know that you have, you know, miniature success when you reach these benchmarks all along the way. I also think, and this might be really not okay to say, but you wallow a little bit. I mean, you let yourself wallow when stuff doesn't go the way you want it to go. And you let yourself feel bad about it for a discrete amount of time with some ice cream in front of the television. And then you are done with that and you do the next thing. I mean, I think that for me, the formation of this has been a roller coaster of emotions. I've been doing it for 10 years now. It's only in the last 2 to 3 that roller coaster has smoothed to rolling hills. So it's no longer a roller coaster, but there's still ups and downs to it. And I think you can't try and ignore that. You can't try and tap that down. You need to embrace it, feel those emotions, and then you move on and keep those goals firmly in mind.
I would say, in addition to that, just because I've spoken about the toggling between being basically moonlighting, having a day job, and then also having quote unquote a side hustle, recognizing your value and your worth, right? Like if you could do this for somebody else, you could do it for yourself. So we mentioned, you know, that you make mistakes, everybody does. So those are lessons. Like, and how do you learn from those lessons, those mistakes? You know, what happened? What can I do better the next time? What can we fix so that we avoid this error for next time? Another thing I would do or recommend is reading like the self-help aisle, those books. And I'm not saying like necessarily how to feel better about yourself, but professional development, right? I think a lot of times we look at that aisle and think, I don't need that. Like, I don't need help feeling better about myself. But there's a lot to gain from listening to people who know how to speak confidently about themselves or to market themselves. We talk about marketing. Marketing is self-promotion. You know, it's talking about your business in a holistic way, and so that it attracts and gains like that audience that you're trying to reach. So one book I can recommend to people is Brag Better. It's a lot of really geared towards women, because a lot of times we have trouble, or we're societally told not to talk about ourselves in a self-confident manner, not to brag about our accomplishments. And I've made this error myself in terms of, if I'm submitting a bio, I don't include some of the things that I should be saying in my bio about myself and my business. And then I look at everybody else on the panel and I'm like, I sound very unaccomplished next to them, and it's because of that mindset we've been created to have. So reading books that authors have written about professional development, career related topics, webinars, any of those things that help get you in a different mindset than what you're conditioned to think, especially from that professional life that we live, I think will help you move past that fear of failure, because failure happens, but the point is you learn how to fail better the next time.
Thank you all very much. We're coming up on the 6:30 mark, so I would just wanted to see if each of you would let our participants know how they could either follow your personal accounts or your business accounts, or how they can kind of watch your success and maybe come and visit Jasmine's brick and mortar store, or Corinne's, help volunteer with the DC Diaper Bank, or see if someone wants to hire Courtney. So I just want to see if each of you could let us know where we could find you and follow your work.
Well, I will say we have done a Trinity alumni volunteer event at the warehouse in the past, and I hope we'll be able to do it again. Right now, we are not welcoming volunteers in groups just for COVID precautions, but we will get there soon. Shots in arms, and we will get there soon. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. We're just DC Diaper Bank. DC Diaper Bank is our handle, and then greaterdcdiaperbank.org is our website. And I would love to connect with everybody. Courtney, you will be getting a phone call from me, and Jasmine, I will be buying all of the robes on your website. So you're going to see me again.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I just downloaded that book, Courtney. I had an Audible credit, so I'm checking out Brag Better. Thank you for that recommendation. So you can find us at cherryblossomintimates.com and on our Instagram at Cherry Blossom Intimates. That's the best way to see what's happening with the business and with the boutique. We're also on LinkedIn at Cherry Blossom Intimates, where you can see sort of our tech growth and our business growth. And we're hiring. So if you happen to know anyone, there's a link in our bio on our Instagram for a myriad of positions that are open. So please fill them because we're growing and we would love to have Trinity alum in the company. So thank you guys. Oh, and you can find me JasmineRJones.com.
Trying to unmute. I look forward to working with both of these ladies. Thank you so much, everybody, for having me and joining us tonight. You can keep up with me or Courted at Courted Style on Instagram, and then Courted on LinkedIn, or Courtney R. O'Neill on LinkedIn as well. I also have a website, courtedstyle.com, where you could see more of everything that we've done.
I want to thank all of our amazing panelists. This has been really insightful, and I really appreciate all your time. We're really proud to call you Trinity alumna or alumni, and I really appreciate all your time. And to all of our participants, thank you so much for joining us this evening. You'll get an email from me probably tomorrow with a quick little survey. If you don't mind filling that out for me, it really helps Stephanie and I prepare for more events and kind of see what you're looking for as alumni. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Everybody have a happy Easter.
And
Thank you.